one another at the conclusion of World War I. Okay. Um, Another source of danger for the Western capitalist system was the Black Star Line. Okay, and there are a lot of misconceptions about the Black Star Line. Okay, some people think that the Black Star Line was part of a Back to Africa program. Okay, and look, Garvey might have said at different points that he wanted, the majority of Africans to go back to the African continent, but in fact, the Black Star Line was not an emigrationist scheme, right? Like they had schemes in the past, like by Chief Alfred Sam, and even before that, the racist American Colonization Society, which tried to basically expel, ship black people en masse, but basically expel black people from the United States. Okay, it wasn't like that. It was a shipping and transportation company that was designed to facilitate commerce between peoples of Africa proper on the continent and the peoples of African descent in North America, South America, Mexico, the Caribbean, etc. Okay, so it really was about the universal commercial power and enhancing the commercial power of African people. Apart from the government's disdain for Garvey's program, there were a couple of internal issues with the Black Star Line, including the inexperience of its board of directors, as well as the exorbitant rates that the company had to pay for ships. Okay, so they had to pay for ships that were somewhat dilapidated, okay, and that were really not seaworthy. But the purchases were negotiated primarily by a black captain named Captain Joshua Cockburn, who eventually turned out to be a traitor to the Garvey movement, who was negotiating for purchases that were 2 or 3 times what the ships were owed themselves, and then pocketing a significant commission for himself. Okay. Another issue with the Black Star Line, which ultimately led to Garvey's arrest, was the fact that some bills were being passed out, or some bills were being mailed to people, handbills, right, promoting the sale of a ship that the Black Star Line didn't yet own. So they were trying to sell stocks to a ship that they didn't own yet, right? Now, this wasn't Garvey's personal responsibility, as he tried to point out in his trial. There was an actual board of directors that was responsible for the Black Star Line, and it was distinct from the UNIA. However, the government wanted so badly, and the Attorney General's office wanted so badly to put an end to his influence that in January 1922, he was charged with mail fraud for attempting to sell stocks in a ship the Black Star Line didn't yet own. In 1923, he was actually convicted, and in 1925, he was actually sentenced to 5 years in Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. However, the blowback from the black community was so furious that eventually the president decided to commute Garvey's sentence after about 2 years, right? So in 1927, Garvey was his sentence was commuted, and he was freed with the proviso that he be exported from the country. So basically he was deported from the United States and was never allowed to return. Okay, so Garvey was deported to Jamaica in 1927. He later moved to the UK, where he engaged in further political activity. And he passed away on June 10th, 1940. Okay, so his life was obviously very important. He was the most important advocate for black power in the 20th century, bar none. In a follow-up video, I'm going to say a couple more things about Garvey's ideological significance and his political significance.